Hello, this is this second video I'm doing today. Uh, this one is my comments on your answers to quizzes 3 and 4. I've already done 1 and 2, so this is the answers for quizzes 3 and 4. If you haven't handed in your answers for quizzes 3 and 4, stop the video right now and wait until after you've sent them to me. I'm obviously trusting you to not cheat and look at the video and then answer your questions. All right. For quiz 3, based on the prayer book rules of precedence, can the Feast of St. Chad be commemorated on Septuagesima? No. Septuagesima has precedence over any other Sunday or holy day. The only commemorations the Book of Common Prayer, somebody thought that you could commemorate St. Chad on Septuagesima, but the only commemorations the Book of Common Prayer envisions are octave days, or when a holy day listed on page Roman numeral LI is celebrated on a Sunday. And so there's the quote is, the following days have precedence of days not noted in the foregoing table, and the collect for the feast shall be followed by the collect for the Sunday. So that's what the prayer book envisions. They fit that particular rubric, or they're an octave day. 2, is it permissible at morning prayer to omit the Venite on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday? Yes. The answer is it may be omitted. If the Feast of the Purification falls before Septuagesima, what lessons are used at morning prayer? If the Feast of the Purification falls after Septuagesima, what lessons are used at morning prayer? Well, I think most of you got this right. If it's before, it's 1 Samuel 1:21 and Galatians 4:1 through 7. If it's after, it's still 1 Samuel 1:21, but it's Romans 8:14 to 21. Let's see. It's not an asterisk. Let's see what it is. Okay. Morning prayer. Okay. I would call it a dagger. There's a dagger next to the second lesson for the Feast of the Purification, morning prayer, and it tells you that if it's after Septuagesima, use the other set. Okay. 4. There are 2 holy days in which the prayer book lists an alternative canticle that shall be said in place of the Venite at morning prayer. What are those 2 holy days? Now, I'm not asking here if Psalm 95 can be substituted for the Venite. I'm asking on what 2 days must another canticle be used. Those days are Easter, found on page 162, and Thanksgiving, tomorrow. So if you are reading morning prayer tomorrow, you need to say the canticle that's found on page 264. Also, don't forget to say the Thanksgiving sentences, which are found at morning prayer. Okay, question 4 is different from question 2. And just to kind of summarize, the Venite can be omitted on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. Well, actually, let me read what I actually wrote. Sorry, I had to disconnect the internet again. It slows the video down. Let me go step back. The question is different from 2. The Venite can be omitted on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. This question, as question 4, is on what 2 holy days is there a canticle that is set in place of the Venite? And I'm going to rephrase this question the next time I have to use it to make it a little bit clearer. Note the wording is shall for these 2 canticles, and there's a difference between shall and may. I think you probably already know that. For quiz 4, On the Feast of the Purification, the Old Testament lesson for morning prayer is 1 Samuel 1:21. How many verses are read? One person actually said one verse, and I've been in a service where the person got up, properly announced the lesson, here beginneth the blah, 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 and then proceeded to read the first verse that was listed, and then said, here endeth the lesson, and then sat down. If the lesson is chapter, verse, it means you start at the verse and read to the end of the chapter. And this brings up something you need to keep in mind, that not everything is spelled out in the Book of Common Prayer. The 1928 lectionary of the 1928 prayer book sometimes uses, so in this case it would be 21 and dash end. So then you would know you read from verse 21 to the end. Well, people knew that, so when they went to the 43 lectionary, they just put in 21, knowing that everybody would know that you read all the way to the end of the chapter. So 121 means you start at verse 21 and go to the end of the chapter. Anyway, the answer is 8 verses. And I probably wouldn't bring it up at all, except I've seen it done wrong. Okay, 2. The prayer book requires the canticle, Christ our Passover sacrifice for us, to be said in place of the Venite on Easter Day. Can this canticle be used at any other time? The answer is yes. It may be said throughout the octave. The rubric is 162. This means you also may use it on Easter 1, because that's still the octave, as compared to the collect, which is only said in Easter week, rubric 163. The proper preface is also used during the octave, rubric 78, upon Easter Day and 7 days after. So again, this brings up something that you need to keep in mind. Not all of the answers are in one spot. If you go to the Easter, where it talks about the propers for Easter, it'll tell you, you shall use the canticle, Christ our Passover sacrifice for us, on Easter, and you may use it through the octave, which includes Easter 1. If you look for the collect, it just says you'll use it through Easter week, which means you don't use it on Easter 1. But to know what preface you need to say, you have to go back to the communion service where that has the proper prefaces and see what it says there. So, well, it's not really complicated, but just you need to keep in mind there may be 2 or 3 places where you've got to look. And after a while, you'll get an idea of where to look, and when you'll say to yourself, now, I'm not sure if I do this or that. And this is, I was going to say this is one case, but it's that's going to sound insulting. But the church calendar is very good about this, because it tells you when to use the Gloria, the Creed, and the proper preface. And especially the Creed and the proper prefaces, those can be confusing sometimes as to when you use them. All right. 3. Is it permissible at morning prayer to say or sing Psalm 95 instead of the Venite? The answer is yes. Rubric is on page 8, except also that Psalm 95 may be used in this place. Now, you can always use Psalm 95 instead of the Venite, and in fact, that's what's in the English Book of Common Prayer, the 1662 Book of Common Prayer. And the opening sentences in the 1662 Book of Common Prayer are very penitential. This was changed in the American Prayer Book, but it's still in the English Prayer Book. So if you wanted to follow the English Prayer Book and didn't have one, you'd use the sentences that are penitential in the 28, and you would always say Psalm 95. Okay, it's customary at morning prayer on the 19th day that you don't say, not customary. At morning prayer on the 19th day, you don't say both the Venite and Psalm 95. You can say one or the other. Shepherd writes, the Venite has always been omitted when Psalm 95 is appointed among the Psalms of the day. That is on the 19th day of the month, or according to the lectionary approved in 1943, on the Fridays of Lent. That's in Shepherd's page 8-9. So here's what I was trying to get to earlier. You may omit the Venite on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, at morning prayer on the 19th day of the month, if you're using the daily cycle of Psalms. If you're not, then you'd use whatever the prayer book says to use. And on Fridays in Lent. On the 19th day and on the Fridays in Lent, you use Psalm 95. So that's basically what you do. And then question 4, how does Psalm 95 and the Venite differ? Again, I think almost all of you got this right. The Venite is Psalm 95 minus the last 4 verses, which 8 and 11, plus Psalm 96 verses 9 and 13, or another way of saying it, and probably the better, is it's Psalm 95 verses 1 through 7, plus Psalm 96 verses 9 and 13. And it's been this way in our prayer book since 1789. So, those are my comments on questions, quizzes 3 and 4, and I'm still waiting for some people with quiz 5 to send me their answers, so I'll wait until I get that. I am going to send you out a quiz 6. I may send it out today. It's still the day before Thanksgiving, so if you see one, then you know I sent it, and if you don't, then you know I didn't. Okay, that's it for now. Have a pleasant evening and a Happy New Year.